Tyler
knows
everything.
Hey everybody, it's Tyler, host of the Tyler Knows Everything podcast, where the nose is crossed out because I always want to learn more. I'm going to be doing a few spin-off episodes that are really fun called The Science of Marvel, where we're going to take characters, abilities, and weapons from the Marvel Cinematic Universe and apply them to, if they existed in real life, what would be the science, what would be the physics to make all these things work. And so, in order to not bore you with too many facts, I've got my comedian co-host here, Kevin. So let's get right to it and break it down. The science basics for Thor's lightning and Mjolnir the hammer. If you were to rub your feet on carpet and poke someone, you would realize that you're capable of discharging small amounts of electricity from static buildup.
Yeah, also a good way to get me too'd, but that might be a little bit much for now. Might save that for the Iron Man episode.
Yeah, Iron Man was quite a flirt.
Yeah.
Or the fundamental principle involves electrons traveling away from a negatively charged object, like Kevin, to a positively charged object, like myself. Normally, this does not occur too often, or when it does, it occurs in the form of a spark between an outlet and a plug.
Oh, yeah, I got a plug, but he never replies anymore.
However, an electrical discharge can increase its effects as it scales in the size of clouds and in thunderstorms.
Oh, yeah, like my depression.
So what exactly causes lightning and thunder?
Well, it's kind of like when a man loves a woman, that whole thing, but my parents never really gave me the full dish on that, so I'm still trying to figure that out.
And what happens if you're struck by lightning?
And I've heard sometimes it's like your entire skeleton pops out, and I think like your lungs explode, but still waiting.
Remember cartoons where they would get electrocuted and you would see the skeleton?
Yeah.
Tom and Jerry and whatnot?
Yeah, it would kind of look like, or like Mortal Kombat.
So let's find out, is it possible to harness these elemental forces and use them the way Thor can in the Marvel Cinematic Universe?
I'm just going to DM Chris Hemsworth later and see what he thinks.
I tried that and he left me on red and he never replied. He's a busy guy, though.
You got to hit the hay every day, and just keep it going.
So let's get to the backstory. Thor is capable of harnessing one of the most powerful elemental forces observed on Earth, lightning.
Yeah, I'm capable of harnessing another of the most powerful elemental forces on Earth, and it's called eating Taco Bell 2 days in a row.
So it's 2 a.m. What's your go-to at Taco Bell?
Well, until this week, my go-to is a good amount of loaded potato grillers, and then just whatever box they have. Mm-hmm. I basically just let them take the reins and destroy my body as they see fit.
I'm gonna go with the cheesy gordita crunch and a Baja Blast.
Baja Blast, yeah, that's true.
All right, so in Thor's earliest adventures leading up to Thor Ragnarok, he relied on his mystical hammer, Mjolnir, to amplify his connection to the elemental forces that allow him to generate lightning and thunder.
And the sweet, sweet love of Jane, the first woman that he literally talked to. Jesus, he has issues.
And it wasn't she didn't dump him, it was a mutual dumping, is what he told us.
Yeah, but he still brings her up a lot, so.
And then along comes the worst sister in the 9 realms and breaks Mjolnir.
Look, to give her credit, her dad kind of did turn her into an ultimate killing machine and then betray her. And if you look at Loki, he handled it in the healthy way, which has just become very funny.
So then Thor is forced to reconnect with his elemental control over lightning.
It's like when my mom blocked the porn on the computer and I had to go back to using the JCPenney catalogs again. Yes, I had to read that off the paper.
Yeah, I feel like we have enough porn, like they could just stop making it.
Yeah, but it's like, do we really want them to? Because it's the thrill of the chase, you know?
You could literally watch everything and not see the same thing twice.
Yeah, I think that's part of it for me.
So now you got Thor without any mystical weapons, and after a beatdown from the Hulk on the gladiator planet of Sakaar.
Talk about work friends totally stabbing you in the back.
Yeah, Thor finds his power within himself and reclaims his title as the Asgardian god of thunder.
And Thor would make a great self-help coach. I mean, he should call his second book Lightning Does Strike Twice.
You know what I didn't like about Ragnarok is that his weakness was a taser, which is also an electrical current.
That is true, but it's kind of like it's like the thing you love the most hurts you in the end, you know?
It makes sense, I guess. So when controlling his electrical powers, Thor uses his own body as a conduit for creating lightning strikes while also emanating several forms of electrical discharge.
Did you know that when you have electrical discharge when you're dreaming, it's called a wet beam?
Oh, a beam. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, now the breakdown. When Thor brings down lightning, he is effectively releasing energy from the heavens to Earth.
Basically, he has amazing Wi-Fi reception.
And as the clouds form above Thor, an updraft of supercooled droplets and small ice crystals rise upward, colliding with the soft hail in the center of a cloud mass.
And this is basically the same way that your burrito in the microwave gets extremely hot on the outside and stays cold on the inside.
It's like Hot Pockets. It's still frozen on the crust and then molten lava on the inside. So these collisions result in the exchange of electrons, generating a positively charged area in the upper strata while creating a negatively charged area in the middle of the cloud mass.
I mean, I don't really know what that means, but I'm a little turned on by it.
If your Man Crush Monday does not know the cloud types, then he ain't it, Chief. Since the collection of dust, air, and ice that make up a cloud act as excellent insulators, a tremendous amount of energy is required before any electricity can be discharged.
And honestly, I don't think it's too late to have Thor knocking back a large-sized Monster energy drink on screen energy drink companies.
Yeah, because his name is Chris Hemsworth. It's not Kyle Hemsworth.
Yeah.
Or Chad.
Wait, what did Kyle do? I don't know.
When electrification reaches a peak at which a cloud simply cannot insulate, this is referred to as the dielectric strength.
Yeah, similar to when it's at 2:45 a.m. and my willpower to not eat 5 handfuls of shredded cheese is at the lowest point.
And then these electrons will be discharged in the form of lightning.
Also known as 5 handfuls of shredded cheese.
Given Thor's astral origins from Asgard, we can speculate that he may use some control over cosmic rays arriving from distant exploding stars or supernovas capable of creating a conductive path for a lightning strike.
Yeah, I met a guy named Cosmic Ray once, but I think he was just basically blown out from all the acid he took in the 60s.
Cosmic Ray, that would be a really cool stage name, actually. So the electrical discharge that forms lightning more often occurs within or between the clouds.
And has anyone confirmed that it's not just a bunch of angry ferrets in the clouds? I mean, honestly.
However, since Thor is standing 12,000 to 21,000 meters below, he uses Mjolnir as a lightning rod to ground an incoming lightning strike, or the leader, to the positively charged ground.
But has anyone ever asked him why?
At about 46 meters from the positively charged Mjolnir, electricity travels upward through Thor and his hammer, generating a streamer that touches the downward leader.
I can't even get full 4G on my phone.
In this instant, all the excess negative charge of the cloud and the positive charge of the ground equilibrate through the transfer of up to 100 billion volts across a lightning network.
I'd love for one of the Thor movies to just have this exact explanation read out loud by Nicolas Cage for no reason.
Speaking of Nicolas Cage reading things, I feel like they hand him a script and before he even turns the page, he's like, "Yep, I'll do it."
Oh yeah, he saw Face Off and just the amount of money he was gonna get, and he didn't even need to know what it was about.
So the lightning then heats up the surrounding air to 54,000 to 90,000 degrees Fahrenheit, causing the air to expand and ionize.
A really good way to cook French fries too.
The ionization of air will generate a distinctive clean smell through the generation of ozone, and the expansion will generate thunder as a shockwave within a 10-meter radius around Thor before it becomes a sound wave cracking at 343 meters per second in the surrounding vicinity.
God, I bet Thor smells fantastic. Can you just imagine that he smells like fresh concrete when it's been rained on?
And I think he smells like a musky Australian.
Yeah, just get in the crevices.
Depending on the nature of the cloud formations above him, Thor is probably able to summon lightning from about 160 kilometers away.
Yeah, that must be why he's not bothered about paying taxes.
Also because he's Australian.
Yeah, that's true.
Now let's get to the science of real life. What exactly happens if you stand with a hammer under an incoming thunderstorm waiting for lightning to strike?
Something involving the cops, probably, if you're white or not.
Well, if you're lucky, nothing.
Yeah, see white.
Unfortunately, a human does not stand up to the power of a lightning strike the way an Asgardian god does.
And they have to make the meatballs at IKEA somehow, right?
In the United States, about 10% of people struck by lightning die, making up 50 deaths per year.
Do you think everyone's hair just stands up straight at the funerals of the people that have been struck by lightning?
Within the first few milliseconds of being struck, you will likely form third-degree burns at the entry and exit areas of the lightning strike.
Again, similar to when I eat Taco Bell at 2:45 a.m.
Can you imagine? I had no idea that lightning strikes had an entry point and an exit point. That's absolutely terrifying.
It's super gangster, actually.
So the heat and the flash of the lightning can cause blood vessels to rupture, possibly forming Lichtenberg figures along your tissues.
Yeah, I think you can also get that from eating at Applebee's.
So Lichtenberg figures trace the path of the electrical discharge as it passes through insulating tissues and look like fern-like patterns in your skin. In addition to superficial damage to tissues, the lightning strike may also disrupt the rhythms of your heart, lungs, and brain.
I can't wait for the Thor movie where one of the guys that he fights survives and he just has asthma for the rest of his life.
Most of the deaths caused by lightning are due to cardiac arrest, respiratory failure, and various neurological disorders ranging from mood changes to seizures.
Also followed by dying from embarrassment if it happens in front of who you have a crush on. Jeez.
The shockwave from the lightning will likely burst your eardrums as well as tear your clothes up with a force capable of throwing you away from the shockwave, causing you to suffer additional fall-related injuries, broken bones, hemorrhaging, etc.
Look, we're not trying to kink shame here.
I mean, that's a big etc., right?
Yeah.
Needless to say, you would not look as composed as Chris Hemsworth does when he swings his hammer around.
But honestly, who does?
No, nobody. It just seems to is his hair. It just seems to work out for that guy.
Yeah.
What about our own ability to generate lightning using human technology?
It's something like the advancement of fuzzy socks on carpet, which changed the world forever.
Well, surprisingly, we have developed the tools to control aspects of weather in order to subdue dangerous weather conditions or even as weapons to attack enemy nations.
Depending on whether or not we've eaten that day, honestly.
So this is where it gets a little bit Alex Jonesy, okay? In order to minimize the hazards posed by cyclones, the National Oceanic Atmospheric Administration, or NOAA, has suggested that lasers can be used to discharge lightning from storms that are likely to become hurricanes.
I knew I should have duct taped a few laser pointers together.
Yeah, we could have used that for Harvey.
Yeah, I know, right?
So in practice, this technology relies on the use of laser beam to create a tunnel of ionized air. This high-energy pulse can shake off electrons in its path.
As well as basically distract any cat.
Cats would go crazy for this.
I know, right?
So, you know, cats, they really want to kill, attack, and eat their owners. They're just too small.
Yeah, and honestly, sometimes when people die, if they have cats, the cats will just go in about the same day and start seeing what they can do to eat them.
Yeah, they're evil little things. So this creates a stream of plasma and resulting in a linear path of positively charged air. This path acts like a tunnel to offer a path of least resistance for lightning or a high voltage source to guide an electrical discharge.
It's kind of like your cool friend that gives you Playboys when you're a kid.
Like printed porn.
Yeah.
Like when was the last
porn.
time we had porn printed on paper?
I don't know if that even exists anymore. I think they gave up in like 1995.
Well, researchers from Terra Mobile, a collaboration between research institutes in France and Germany, have put this idea to the test by shooting short laser pulses into the thunderclouds above Landmer Laboratory for Atmospheric Research in New Mexico.
Imagine being a scientist and being extremely bored and having a ton of money and just choosing to do this. That's probably the best thing that I can think of.
So using their mobile laser, this group was able to initiate a record electrical discharge within the synchronized laser pulses.
Okay, so when is the giant robot going to be ready?
Other approaches include using a rocket attached to a copper wire filament that can be shot into a thundercloud.
It has to sound like something from a freaking Wile E. Coyote cartoon.
Super disappointed that Elon Musk is not involved in this.
Yeah, right?
The researchers at the University of Florida have used this technique, causing a lightning leader to conduct electricity through the wire filament, exploding the wire and creating a column of ionized air that tunnels remaining lightning strikes.
Yeah, I would think of like Donald Trump as kind of a lightning leader, wouldn't he be?
Yeah, well, and I saw it was University of Florida, so you know there's going to be a headline that says Florida man steals laser.
Florida man explodes due to laser.
In a similar fashion, the American military has made laser-guided lightning weapons called laser-induced plasma channel. that create a virtual tunnel through which a high voltage source can predictability travel.
It's really good when the military looks at lightning and says, how do we turn that into a gun?
As weapons, this can be used to take down enemy vehicles as well as detonate unexploded ordnance that may be a hazard for infantry and vehicles.
They've already exploded people with this.
So how heavy is Thor's hammer? Not as heavy as your mom.
Yeah.
Well, Dr. Neil deGrasse Tyson has speculated that if Mjolnir is composed of neutron star matter, so that's an exploded star that has shrunk down, it's the densest material in the universe outside of a black hole. And then it would weigh as much as 300 billion elephants.
Honestly, not as dense as the amount of criticism in Neil deGrasse Tyson's tweets, I don't think.
Yeah, so did you know that when James Cameron Titanic came out, Neil deGrasse Tyson noticed that the night sky when the Titanic was sinking was not the correct star pattern, and he sent that to James Cameron with the correct star pattern. And because James Cameron is such a perfectionist, when they did the re-release, that he changed it. But he wasn't happy about it.
He was like frustrated. He was like, I thought they were only paying attention to Rose's boobs. Like I didn't think they would even care.
So water has a density of 1 gram per cubic centimeter, and lead has a density of 11 grams per cubic centimeter. But they pale in comparison to neutron star matter, which has a density of 100 million grams per cubic centimeter. So you got to say million twice. It's so big.
And that's still not as dense as anything when it literally hits that bony part right before your toes start on your feet.
Oh, hate that.
Yeah.
And in this case, Mjolnir would weigh roughly 12,000 trillion pounds.
Sorry, Thor, I don't think you're going to be taking that on carry-on.
Yeah, and if it's Spirit Airlines, you have to pay extra no matter how much it weighs.
So can you put Mjolnir in the middle seat since they're doing the social distancing thing, or do you think like that has to be worked around?
Spirit Airlines is like, did you look out the window? That'll be $25.
Yeah, they added on. They're like, window viewing fee.
We landed safely. That'll be an extra $35.
It really changes the Twilight Zone thing where the guy sees the thing on the wing. He gets charged for that in that version.
So in Norse mythology and the Marvel comics, they tell us that Mjolnir is composed of Uru metal, that's U-R-U, forged ages ago by the blacksmith Eitri in the heart of a dying star.
I actually used to listen to Uru metal, like Korn, I think, is Uru metal.
That would be a good name for a band.
Yeah. It would be.
Presumably, Uru metal is magical in nature and thus conveys the enchantment placed on it by Thor's father Odin. Or maybe it's Maybelline. But in this matter, we are not concerned with the fantasy or myths of comic books, but in the real world of Hollywood movies.
I mean, we always have to base everything off of what Hollywood does. That's how you pick a reel.
So in the 2011 film Thor, the Norse gods are identified as a race of alien beings whose science is so advanced compared to 21st century Earth that their abilities appear not unlike magic to us.
And that's kind of how I feel about people who wake up early in the morning.
People who wake up early in the morning, they really like to just, they think that they're better than everybody, right?
Yeah. It's something about the fact that people don't wake up early in the morning and act regular. They're always louder.
Yeah. And it's like, congratulations, you fell asleep at 9 p.m.
Yeah.
In this case, we can speculate that as to the properties of Uru metal they must have in order to account for the experimental evidence in the Thor and Avengers films.
It's kind of like speculating as to why there are so many mattress stores all the time everywhere. It's like, how many people need a new mattress? I'm pretty sure it's money laundering.
Literally haven't bought a new mattress in like a decade.
And you can probably go here in Beaumont and see like 15 mattress stores.
But I just buy the foam cushion on top.
Oh, that makes sense.
Crappy mattress.
Yeah.
Expensive foam cushion.
Yeah.
And there you go. So in the first Thor film, when Odin prepares to banish his wayward son to Earth, he whispers to the hammer, "Whoever holds this hammer, if he be worthy, shall possess the power of Thor." In these days of interactive voice recognition software and smartphones, such as reprogramming of the hammer's operating system through speech commands, hardly counts as magic, but how the nanotech embedded within Thor's hammer executes Odin's instructions does defy present-day science.
I can't wait for Apple to go from 3D animal filters to like iOS 20 that's just going to have like high-level nanotech and do this exact thing.
I think that we should just stop making iPhones at 11 because we don't need, what do we need?
Well, we went to Roman numerals.
They're just becoming better cameras at this point.
True. It's basically you're buying a camera with other things attached to it.
So in the Avengers Age of Ultron clip, Tony Stark speculates that there's a biosensor in the hammer's shaft that recognizes when Thor has grasped Mjolnir. He is correct in a sense, though it is not Thor's fingerprints that the hammer is reading.
And I kind of have a similar sort of sensor in my own shaft, if you know what I mean.
Does your shaft weigh 300 million trillion pounds?
I
Most
put
likely,
that on Tinder.
it is taking some complex biological and psychological profile that calculates the worthiness of whoever is trying to lift the hammer.
Oh, it's like when you fill out the questions on OkCupid and lie a little bit so that the goth girl that works at Buffalo Wild Wings will notice you.
If you are a goth girl that works at Buffalo Wild Wings, DM me. This is consistent with the scene in the clip where Steve Rogers, Captain America, is able to move the hammer, albeit slightly, while Tony Stark and Jim Rhodes, using thruster-assisted Iron Man and Iron Patriot gloves, are unable to budge Mjolnir at all.
I actually heard there's a deleted scene where a golden retriever bites down on the handle and he uses it to play basketball and win the state championship.
If anybody were worthy, it would be a golden retriever.
I fully
But
believe
going
so.
back to that scene in Age of Ultron, remember when Steve Rogers nudges it and everybody kind of looks and notices?
I felt things in my core that like shouldn't happen
So-
in a superhero movie.
And for Endgame, of course he wields it.
Yeah, he
right?
wields it.
Because it's too late for spoiler alert. You know,
Yeah,
you've already seen it.
everyone has seen it.
And if you haven't, then that's
Disney,
that's
get
on
Disney
you.
Plus.
But my theory is that back in Age of Ultron, he could pick it up then. He just didn't want to cause a fuss because Captain America is so humble.
Yeah.
So he nudged it and then immediately set it back down.
Yeah.
But then forever on, he knew in his mind that he could wield Mjolnir when the time comes. And so for Endgame,
He had to wait. That's a
Right.
true leader. I mean, Tony Stark would have picked it up and like flailed it around and bragged about it.
Right. But Captain America, that's America's ass.
Yeah, that's America's ass.
Here, the answer lies within Newton's first law of motion, which states that an object at rest will remain at rest if no net force acts upon it. The key word in the last sentence is net. When the hammer rests on a coffee table, there is a downward force on it from the gravitational attraction between the mass of the hammer and the mass of the earth, which is what we refer to as gravitational weight.
Would you consider the Earth worthy if the hammer can stay in it and not like destroy it? Or
Not in 2020. Earth is
okay,
not worthy.
Earth is canceled.
And a counterforce from the book and a tabletop pushing up on the hammer. So the counterforce, referred to in physics as normal force, as it acts perpendicular to or normal to any surface, is fundamentally electrostatic in nature and is easy to take for granted except when it fails, as when one puts a 1,000-ton object on a table that can only provide a counterforce of several hundred pounds.
I like the idea that the hammer kind of has its own little personality and can kind of decide, things.
There was one of the Thor movies where he hangs it on like a hook, like where you walk in the door and you put
he
your
does
keys.
do that.
Yeah. So that kind of goes back to the mystical abilities of it. It doesn't actually weigh
Anything,
1 trillion
really.
pounds.
Yeah.
It's just the worthiness. When Tony Stark tries to lift Mjolnir using his Iron Man glove, he exerts a large upward force greater than its weight, and yet the hammer remains at rest. So where does the additional downward force come from? One can only conclude that a unique property of Uru metal is that under proper stimulus, it can emit large quantities of gravitons.
I kind of prefer Star Crunches for talking Little Debbie snacks.
Do you remember the cosmic brownies?
Yeah, because
On Earth, these fundamental particles have not been experimentally confirmed to exist, but as stipulated, the Asgardians are ahead of us scientifically.
and one day we'll have car keys that can only be lifted by those worthy of driving a Toyota Corolla.
Gravitons are conjectured to transmit the gravitational forces, and if an object emits additional gravitons, it is equivalent to increasing its mass.
It's like when you're a kid and you make your body heavier so that your older brother can't lift you up.
Thus, when an unworthy person applies an upward force, the Uru metal increases the hammer's weight to exactly cancel this lift, and the hammer remains unmoved.
And we can only hope to have such self-confidence.
When Tony and Rhodey simultaneously exert a large upward force, the emission rate of gravitons increases to again neutralize their efforts.
And you can't always get what you want, as the Rolling Stones say.
The greater the weight will not damage the tabletop, as only enough gravitons are emitted to balance out all upward forces. To keep the hammer stationary, once the lifting is stopped, the excess gravitons emission also ceases.
Oh, it's like when you think you're full of pasta and you're going to go into cardiac arrest, but then you see like an extra piece of bread like 20 minutes later and you're like, maybe.
It's like when you feed your kids dinner and they eat half the plate, they say they're full, but then when dessert comes out,
Oh,
they're like,
yeah.
oh no, I have a separate area for that.
I believe your stomach can make an extra pocket for dessert.
The ability of Uru metal to alter its interaction with gravitational fields may also account for another astounding property of Mjolnir, that when it's thrown, it can alter its trajectory and move, seemingly of its own violation, returning to Thor's hand.
Ah, true friendship transcends all logic, doesn't it?
In physics, the only valid answer to the question, how fast are you moving, is who's asking.
And it seems kind of personal, but I mean...
Right now, if you're listening to this sitting on a bench at a train station, then you are at rest, while another listener on the train speeding by you is moving east at, say, 40 miles per hour. Of course, from the point of view of the listener on the train, she is the one who is stationary, and it is that bench warmer who is moving west at 40 miles per hour. And both readers are in fact racing at a dizzying speed of 67,000 miles per hour as the Earth orbits the sun, which in turn is in motion around the center of the Milky Way galaxy.
And still someone's peeing on the train in New York.
All motion is relative, and the amazing properties of Uru metal, which scientists are just beginning to explore, or would be if it actually existed, must include the ability to alter its rest frame in mid-flight so that its motion, when viewed from the perspective of a stationary observer, would be such that it returns to Thor's hand.
And honestly, if you're doing it right, they won't think you've done anything at all.
Yeah, so Uru metal is kind of like a made-up metal like vibranium. You know, it's just...
Yeah. I like Marvel's ability to just, whenever they need like an object that's unexplainable, they can just do it. They're just like, it's a thing, and everyone in the universe acts like it's normal. They don't question it.
That's our show for this time. So, like I said, we're going to be doing these as a spinoff to the regular Tyler Knows Everything podcast. We're going to break down all the different your favorite characters in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, their abilities, their weapons, and apply it to real life physics, real life science, and let you know what would have to be done in real time to have these type of amazing abilities. So now for the moment of truth, I'll attempt to pick up Mjolnir.
Not worthy. I can't wait to find out if how Spider-Man successfully balances being a teenager and a superhero, like the stress levels. That's the science that I'm interested in.
Let's see how old Tom Holland actually is, though.
He's the real age, I think.
Really?
They've done a good job. They picked a actual close to.
Okay, so this is what I thought.
Yeah.
You know, he's 24.
He's 24.
But he's playing a high school kid. And also Zendaya, how old is just guess.
This is
just
a
guess.
Zendaya is probably 26.
23.
23. Okay.
But that's another one where it's grown adults playing high school kids, and they pull it off.
But they look young.
They do.
They're both actors.
When you see Zendaya and Tom Holland and they're on the field trip, they look like juniors in high school. Seniors in high school. Yeah.
You don't even question it.
It's similar to the Saved by the Bell kids. You know, they were a lot older too when they were doing
But then when you watch Grease, like, they're clearly 37.
There's one guy that was like 40
they're
with like a
37
receding...
and they're supposed to be in high school, and it's very easy to forget that they're in high school.
But that's back when men were men and women were men and babies were men.
Yeah, you come out smoking.
All right, guys. We'll see you next time.